Does that sound all right?
Absolutely. It sounds much more than all right.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Haribol.
Jai. Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtottara Sata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much for the Kirtan, Saraswati Mataji, and welcome everyone for Srimad Bhagavatam class / discussion with Jayadvaita Swami and friends. Maharaj, apparently, according to his online itinerary, is in Ukraine right now. So it would be a big surprise if he showed up tonight. Otherwise, we're all friends here. It is Wednesday, October 18th, 2023. And tonight we're starting with Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 25, text number 13. Very much looking forward to hearing everyone's reading and commenting. And thank you again for being here. Hare Krishna. I've posted the verse there, so someone can start reading as soon as they like. Gurudas Prabhu, I see your face there, so if you can start reading, that will be nice.
Gurudas Prabhu, you're on mute.
Thank you very much. My obeisances to my Guru Maharaj and to all the devotees. Text number 13. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yogadyatmika Pungsang Mato Nishreyasayame Atyantoparatir Yatra Dukasya Cha Sukasya Cha. Translation. The personality of Godhead answered, the yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity, and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world, is the highest yoga system. Purport. In the material world, everyone is trying to get some material happiness. But as soon as we get some material happiness, there is also material distress. In the material world, one cannot have unadulterated happiness. Any kind of happiness one has is contaminated by distress also. For example, if we want to drink milk, then we have to bother to maintain a cow and keep her fit to supply milk. Drinking milk is very nice. It is also pleasure. But for the sake of drinking milk, one has to accept so much trouble. The yoga system as here stated by the Lord, is meant to end all material happiness and material distress. The best yoga, as taught in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna, is bhakti yoga. It is also mentioned in the Gita that one should try to be tolerant and not be disturbed by material happiness or distress. Of course, one may say that he is not disturbed by material happiness, but he does not know that just after one enjoys so-called material happiness, material distress will follow. This is the law of material world. Lord Kapila states that the yoga system is the science of the spirit. One practices yoga in order to attain perfection on the spiritual platform. There's no question of material happiness or distress. It's transcendental. Lord Kapila will eventually explain how it is transcendental, but the preliminary introduction is given here. Very basic verse, but profound also. The essential teaching that Lord Kapila is communicating is detachment and knowledge. We have to detach from what we consider to be, or what the material born and raised person considers to be knowledge. It's confusing to hear in the beginning of our devotional service these topics about how even material happiness is not really happiness, and since it's followed by distress. Speaking for myself, that was an area that confused me for some time, and I'm just getting to the point where I'm beginning to maybe understand a little bit of it, that our orientation is so sense oriented, or we are unlucky to be brought up in a culture or in a society where happiness of the senses is taken as happiness. And then when things stop or don't work out, or one loses the taste and tries to revive it, all kinds of problems occur, and we don't even like to admit that these are problems. I had happiness once. I'm chasing after that happiness again. Where is it? Why can't I achieve this same taste again? This is the source of problems like addiction, problems like I can't think right now of other examples, but addiction is very serious. We convince ourselves that I was happy once doing this. I want to be happy again doing this same thing. And when I can't be happy again, I try to stubbornly go down this same path by taking more and more and more of this experience, or more and more of this substance, in the vain attempt to make myself happy. But here comes the pure devotee, here comes the Lord Kapila, here comes the association, here comes the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, all telling us, wait a minute, this is not real happiness. You've been fooled into thinking that this little tiny taste of something is happiness. It's not really happiness. Take to the path of happiness. Hare Krishna.
There's a comment from Ikendra Prabhu. He says, nice reminder. As soon as we get some material happiness, there's also material distress. The tendency is to think in American vernacular, let the good times roll. But Srila Prabhupada kindly reminds us that bad times always follow so-called good times in this world. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments here, for bhakti, benefit for oneself is a secondary effect. Being situated in this yoga, one uproots material happiness and distress. And Praveen Krishna has an argument. Modern technology has helped to alleviate these miseries. You can get the same cow milk at the stores. Why maintain a cow? There may be some mental or emotional distress, but physically speaking, we have removed most of the miseries. And Guru Das Prabhu says, the good time roll is often followed by a steamroller. So who will answer Praveen's question? Saraswati Mataji says, no one can remove the miseries arising from birth, death, old age, and disease. Our material bodies limit even the amount of happiness you can experience. Ikendra Prabhu says, if one closely looks at how the milk got in the store, one may see all manner of trouble. Yes.
I would raise my hand, but I'm driving. This is Panchatapadas. And to counter the argument, just as a practical observation, I would say, how have we eliminated most of the miseries? No. In recent history, there was an AIDS epidemic. In recent history, there was a COVID epidemic. In recent history, there were multiple world wars. Right now, people are dying in Palestine and Ukraine and different places in Africa because people with unbridled lust and anger are killing each other. So how have the material miseries been reduced? They're simply going on. My father worked all his life in politics, hoping to alleviate some of the miseries of the material world, thinking that that was the way to do it. And he died a disgusted and unhappy man because he saw just in time for his last days on earth, President of the United States. So these material miseries, much of which, if not all of them, brought about either directly or indirectly by our own personal karma and by collective karma, they haven't been assuaged by material science. They're simply going on in different ways, forms, and they'll continue to do so. And the prescription for Kali Yuga is that they will get worse and worse. Hare Krishna.
Panchatattva Prabhu, you made me think while you were speaking of a kind of devil's advocate type of argument that might go, well, you can't blame me for looking for happiness. I mean, God gave us intelligence. We're trying to seek out happiness. And we've got a lot of smart people working on it. You mentioned all those miseries of different kinds, people getting killed in war, but we're working on that. We're in the future, our peacekeepers will find a solution to these conflicts. In the future, our scientists will find, like, the world was afflicted with COVID, but then there came the vaccines. So now we're happy again. Why are you faulting this?
Yeah, the point is that they're always pointing to these remedial measures as solutions, when at best they're band-aids. The problem is birth, old age, disease, and death. And one may even get himself promoted to the heavenly planets, or one may find himself in the subterranean planets, and may find in some material way his misery somewhat decreased for the time being. But those primary problems remain unresolved. They continue. And as long as we are seeking material solutions to our problems, they will remain unresolved. They'll just take different forms. Just like the United States of America just recently, it actually to some degree is still going through an epidemic of addiction to opioids. And there was a bestseller of a book that was a bestseller recently that described how corporations and pharmaceutical companies were all in cahoots to make money off of the mass addiction of people all over the country. So, that's an industry. They're supposedly coming with people. My point being that as long as we are in material consciousness, we are going to be encountering reactions for our attempts to achieve material happiness. It's inevitable. We have to become transcendental. We need to so Srila Prabhupada, my wife, and as we drive in the morning and so forth. Prabhupada is hammering home these points. You cannot be happy trying to make a material arrangement for happiness. It will not work. Prahlad Maharaj says, trying to engage in achieving material happiness will yield exactly the opposite effect. That's an authority. That's a Mahajan speaking. Those are the types of personalities we accept as authorities. And if we're wise and we look at our own lives, we can see that it's the truth.
I just wanted to say that I was listening to a lecture by Keshav Maharaj recently, and he broke it down really nicely in such a practical, relatable way. He said that if we try to experience material happiness, then one of four things will happen. The first thing that could happen is that we don't actually get the thing that will make us happy, and then we're frustrated. The second thing is we could try to get something for material happiness, and we get it, but it doesn't make us happy. And then the third thing is we try to endeavor for material happiness, we get the thing, it makes us happy for some time, and then it fades. And then the fourth thing is that we endeavor for material happiness, we get it, it makes us happy, but it also brings a whole lot of problems with it. So that just mapped out like how whenever we attempt for material happiness, it just leads to frustration in many different forms.
I like Guru Das's previous point when he was referring to addiction, that people who are addicts have this common experience of their initial high being something so intense that the rest of their years, they're chasing after that same feeling, but never really obtaining it. And it reminds me of what Prabhupada gave as an example in terms of lust, how, you know, you pour ghee on a fire, and at first the fire calms down, but then it flares. So the same thing is there for the living entity who's trying, the human being who's trying to satisfy his senses materially. At first, one may achieve some apparent satisfaction, but then the desire becomes even stronger, and it begins to control the person in such a way that they end up suffering so much because their senses are out of control. The whole purpose of human life is for sense control, to achieve the higher purpose of God realization. That's the purpose, and it cannot be obtained. That cannot be achieved by material. It won't yield that result. Sometimes pravritti marg, the path of pravritti marg, is advocated because the idea is that a person will burn out on sense. It's a path that can ultimately lead to hell, because even on the path of pravritti marg, there must be some control. And people can't control themselves, especially in Kali Yuga. The path of nivritti marg is advocated because it's a much less dangerous path, especially when it is engaged in with the purpose of propagating Krishna consciousness or devotional service.
That's certainly the path that Lord Kapila is advocating here, Nivritti Marg. And of course, he's emphasizing Bhakti Yoga as the topmost yoga, the only yoga that can take us out of the duality of material happiness and distress. Maybe someone would like to read the next verse.
Oh, Saraswati Mataji posted a comment. The mind's job is raga dvisha, attachment and aversion leading to uncontrolled sense control.
That point seems to be made throughout our training in Bhakti Yoga, that without controlling the senses, we can't, no one can achieve anything meaningful or lasting. That our sadhana is with that understanding that we have to control that's a prerequisite before achieving any higher stage. We have to develop sense control. Some of us have been working on that and keep working on that.
I can read text 14 if no one else wants to. Tamimam te pravakshami yamayo vacham puranage rishinam shrotu kamanam yogam sarvanga nepunam. O most pious mother, I shall now explain unto you the ancient yoga system which I explained formerly to the great sages. It is serviceable and practical in every way. The Lord does not manufacture a new system of yoga. Sometimes it is claimed that someone has become an incarnation of God and is expounding a new theological aspect of the absolute truth. But here we find that although Kapila Muni is the Lord himself and is capable of manufacturing a new doctrine for his mother, He nevertheless says, I shall just explain the ancient system, which I once explained to the great sages, because they were also anxious to hear about it. When we have a super excellent process already present in Vedic scriptures, there is no need to concoct a new system to mislead the innocent public. At present, it has become a fashion to reject the standard system and present something bogus in the name of a newly invented process of yoga. So we know that there are two processes for acquiring knowledge, spiritual knowledge. There's the ascending Roha Panth, which involves understanding God through research, speculation, hypothesis, philosophizing, theorizing, debating, experimenting. And then there's the descending process, Avropanth, where knowledge is gained through authority of a bona fide guru and shastra coming from the Vaishnava Parampara, a disciplic succession. This is the Bhakti Yoga Marg. Kapil Muni is an incarnation of Krishna and perfectly capable, as it says, of devising some new bona fide religious system. But he is leading by example and declaring that the descending path imparts perfect knowledge about Krishna. What's the value of someone inventing or designing a new religion or coming up with other spiritual knowledge of the absolute truth, which is nothing but concoction by a conditional soul who are inherently defective because they're sure to commit mistakes, they're invariably illusioned, they have a cheating mentality, and they have a debilitating, limited, imperfect senses. So there's just absolutely no use for following the ascending process, and it's like the blind leading the blind straight into a ditch. Haribol.
Does anyone else want to say anything, or should we move on to the next verse?
I can read the next verse if you want.
Great.
Okay, text 15. Cheta kalvasya bandaya muktaye chatmanomatam guneshu saktam bandaya ratang va pumsi muktaye. Translation. The stage in which the consciousness of the living entity is attracted by the three modes of material nature is called conditional life. But when that same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation. Purport. There is a distinction here between Krishna consciousness and Maya consciousness. Guneshu, or Maya consciousness, involves attachment to the three modes of material nature, under which one works sometimes in goodness and knowledge, sometimes in passion, and sometimes in ignorance. These different qualitative activities, with the central attachment for material enjoyment, are the cause of one's conditional life. When the same cheta, or consciousness, is transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, or when one becomes Krishna conscious, he is on the path of liberation. I'm just one small point. I was just thinking how nice it is where, if we have certain propensities, most of them, if we just make it Krishna conscious, or it revolves around Krishna somehow, then it can transcend those three modes. Like, for example, I like doing artistic things. So when I feel like when I'm doing Didi sewing, it makes me happy and it's Krishna conscious.
Oh, thank you. That's such a nice point about engaging our propensities in Krishna consciousness and rising above the three modes. Praveen has a continuation of his argument. Happiness doesn't mean that we need to be satisfied. While enjoying, we experience happiness. The dissatisfaction which we experience just means we are always seeking enjoyment and need to keep on enjoying. Dissatisfaction doesn't mean no happiness, but means we need to continue our enjoyment in various ways. Who wants to take this argument? I see Panchatartha Prabhu. Is Panchatartha Prabhu trying to unmute himself? Oh, I don't know what's happening.
Haribol. Oh, well, yeah. Let's look at that again. Let me think. Argument continue. Happiness doesn't mean that we need to be satisfied. This sounds like word jugglery to me. While enjoying, we experience happiness. Okay. It doesn't mean we need to be satisfied. So what are you after? Is dissatisfaction enjoyment? Is the lack of satisfaction enjoyment? The dissatisfaction which we experience, Praveen says, he argues, just means we are always seeking enjoyment and need to keep on enjoying. Dissatisfaction doesn't mean no happiness, but means we need to continue our enjoyment in various ways.
He's saying that if at any point we're not satisfied, it just means we need to keep experiencing more enjoyment.
So what again, what does that really even mean? A person knows, for example, when they've eaten, that whether or not they're satiated or they're satisfied, right? They know if they've had a meal, they know before they've eaten that they're hungry, they may be a little weak, they need some nourishment. And conversely, they know after they've eaten that they're feeling some satisfaction. They're not feeling dissatisfied because they stopped eating. They're feeling satisfaction because they've actually eaten. So that's a material example. Dissatisfaction is it's not like a concomitant factor of the living entity that he must be always experiencing some level of dissatisfaction. It's a condition of the material world that the living entity is in. It's his conditioned nature. It's his identifying with matter that causes this condition to be rather constant. Krishna tells Arjuna at the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, my wife and I were discussing this earlier, that happiness and distress, or you could say satisfaction and dissatisfaction, arise as a result of sense perception in this material world. They come rather automatically. You can't avoid them. You have to tolerate them. But we also know from the pages of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam that there's transcendental happiness, which is ever increasing. Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam susukam kartamavyayam. It's ever increasing happiness. Whatever we may say about being happy or unhappy in this material world, it's whatever happiness we may think is there, it's limited. It's bound by whatever capacity we have of our senses, and by whatever the qualities of modes of nature that we are entangled in. that perception of happiness ultimately is illusory because it has to do with the contact of our senses and our mind and our intelligence with this material world. Therefore, we say illusory happiness. There may be some modicum of happiness in this world, but it's fleeting. And the living entity, because he's trying to enjoy material happiness, is bound to experience dissatisfaction and distress. I don't know if I've adequately responded to Naveen's argument. Naveen offers very good arguments. Praveen, excuse me, Praveen, Krishna Prabhu.
Saraswati Mataji has a comment. She says, happiness comes with contentment, which you cannot get from material association due to unlimited material desires that are nothing but pipe dreams that cannot be fulfilled because the soul wants eternal happiness. And Guru Das Prabhu says, Praveen's argument is like this poem by Stephen Crane. I saw a man pursuing the horizon. Round and round they sped. I was amazed at this. I accosted the man. Stop, I said. You can never. You lie, he cried and ran on. Praveen says, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Praveen Prabhu. You're always the excellent devil's advocate. Which verse is next?
16.
Oh,
You want to read it?
Murari
Well,
Gupta says something before we go to the next verse. In the material world, happiness is dependent on relieving a distressful condition. Therefore, for happiness, we have to be dissatisfied. Interesting. I think you can read the next verse.
Okay. Text 16. Aham mama bimanotai kamalobhadibir malahai vitam yada mana shudham. Excuse me. Vitam yada mana shudham adhukam asukam samam. Translation. When one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and bodily possessions as mine, one's mind becomes purified. In that pure state, he transcends the stage of so-called material happiness and distress. Purport. Kama and lobha are the symptoms of material existence. Everyone always desires to possess something. It is said here that desire and greed are the products of false identification of oneself with the body. When one becomes free from this contamination, then his mind and consciousness also become freed and attain their original state. Mind, consciousness, and the living entity exist. Whenever we speak of the living entity, this includes the mind and consciousness. The difference between conditional life and liberated life occurs when we purify the mind and the consciousness. When they are purified, one becomes transcendental to material happiness and distress. In the beginning, Lord Kapila has said that perfect yoga enables one to transcend the platform of material happiness. To transcend the platform of material distress and happiness. How this can be done is explained here. One has to purify his mind and consciousness. This can be done by the Bhakti Yoga system. As explained in the Narada Pancharatra, one's mind and senses should be purified. Tat paratvena nirmalam. One's senses must be engaged in devotional service. One's senses must be engaged in devotional service to the Lord. That is the process. The mind must have some engagement. One cannot make the mind vacant. Of course, there are some foolish attempts to try to make the mind vacant or void, but that is not possible. The only process that will purify the mind is to engage it in Krishna. The mind must be engaged. If we engage our mind in Krishna, naturally the consciousness becomes fully purified, and there is no chance of the entrance of material desire and greed. Hare Krishna. One comment I would make is it's interesting that Prabhupada says here, where is it? About happiness and distress. It's described as a single platform. The platform of happiness and distress. Where are those words exactly? His mind is transcend the platform. It's in this at the beginning of the second paragraph. In the beginning, Lord Kapila has said that perfect yoga enables one to transcend the platform of material distress and happiness. He doesn't say platforms. It's the platform. It's a level of existence. It's a level of consciousness where platform and distress are experienced. So they're part of the same existence of the living entity. That's where his consciousness is situated, in happiness and distress, happiness and distress. I get something, I lose something. I want something, I need something, I get something. It doesn't satisfy. It goes on and like. So the platform of happiness and distress, that's material, that's material consciousness. And Prabhupada is arguing that we have to transcend that platform. And that's done by engaging in Krishna. In the last paragraph, the only process that will purify the mind is to engage it in Krishna. Sometimes we say engage in Krishna consciousness, engage in devotional service. Here Prabhupada is really making it a very forceful few words. The mind needs to be engaged in Krishna. So the process for doing that is engaging in Krishna consciousness. I was listening to a conversation Prabhupada was having, or a talk Prabhupada was giving about the different stages. He was describing each one of those stages and how the living entity finally arrives at ruchi, taste, because he's engaged in purifying his mind and senses. He develops some faith, the very initial stage. He takes shelter of devotees, and particularly a guru. And then he's engaged in devotional service, bhajana kriya. Then narta nivritti comes, and the unwanted things begin to disappear from his heart. And ultimately, he comes to this stage before other stages of ruchi. He gets a real taste. So that's made possible by this, engaging the mind in Krishna. So that's my comment. Hare Krishna.
Saraswati Mataji says, utilizing everything in the service of Krishna with the aim to satisfy him, as per guidance of Guru. Otherwise, we are trying to usurp his property, imitate him, and failing miserably. Gurudas Prabhu says, much of the material world's great literature center around a character or characters who chase happiness and encounter distress on the material platform and cannot see a way out. Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment comes to mind.
Yeah, Crime and Punishment is a really interesting study, a psychological study of a person who's who commits a terrible act under all kinds of stressful circumstances, and then has to wrestle with his conscience until he's finally found out, and he doesn't achieve relief from the distress, that wrestling, until he has to actually recognize that he's fallen, that he's committed this terrible crime. Then he actually achieves some relief. But we're in many ways like that, you know. Krishna says in Srimad Bhagavatam that he's the benefactor of the truthful devotee. We have to come to terms with the fact that we're not all we're cranked up to be. And taking shelter of a bona fide spiritual master means you have to become very humble and say, I'm really fallen soul. Please help me. Please understand. You know, even was it Sanatana Goswami? He said the people, they describe me as a great sage, great, very wise person, you know, but I don't even know who I am. So just like Dostoevsky's protagonist in Crime and Punishment, he has to ultimately come to the point. Even he's forced by a very expert and clever detective, but he has to come to the point that he accepts. Yes, I'm very fallen. I've committed this horrible act, and I deserve my fate. Fortunately for devotees, their fate doesn't have to be prison or some other condition. We're already imprisoned. It's the material world. We can purify ourselves of the material modes of nature by Krishna's mercy, become purified of these modes under the guidance of a spiritual master and transcend them and develop our loving service to Krishna.
Saraswati Mataji says, a fictional book center on protagonists overcoming great obstacles but get their happy ever after. Are there any other comments, or should we have kirtan? Who would like to sing? Oh, Murari Gupta Prabhu says, Prabhupada once said that humility is to feel 100% dependent on Krishna. Yes. So who's doing kirtan?
Maybe Caitanya-caritamrta would like to sing.
Might be, is it a little early for kirtan? I don't know.
No.
What about Panchatattva Prabhuji?
I think Krishna Caitanya-caritamrta would be just the right person to lead this kirtan.
All right. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Gurudev, 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 Jai Gurudev, Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada, Itago Premanandi Hari Bo, Jai Om Vishnu Brahmsa, Prarajakcharya Stotra, Satya Srimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Jai Om Vishnu Brahmsa, Prarajakcharya Stotra, Satya Srimad, His Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. ISKCON Pranacharya, Savior of the world, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Radha Krishna Gopal Gopinath Shamakun, Radhakun Guru Ramagadana ki jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Swatora Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Yamuna Mai ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. All glories to the sum of devotees, all glories to the sum of devotees, all glories to the sum of devotees. Jai Sri Guru Angara Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai, thank you so much, Krishna Kanteya Prabhu, and thank you everyone for being here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Jayadvaita Swami and friends ki jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna.
Samaveta Bhakta Brinda ki jai.
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 Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Kendra Prabhu. Thank you, Krishna Kanteya Prabhu, for that beautiful kirtan.
Hare Krishna, all glories.
Thank you, Gurudas Prabhu.